Welcome to the show tonight, Tom.
Thank you so much, Teddy. It's great to be here.
What would you like to tell our audience about the International Human Rights Art Festival? What's the one great thing you want to tell us about why everyone should come to this great event next Friday, 1 week from today?
Well, it's passionate, creative, sincere, beautiful, multimedia, and highly talented collective. Whatever your particular taste is in art, we're going to have it. We have theater, we have music, we have panel discussions, workshops, Kids Fest with activities for kids, all kinds of events, and they're all advocacy related and just beautiful, high quality.
Could you tell us some of the artists that will be there on hand, how many exhibitors or how many different types of artwork that will be displayed?
Sure, there's visual art. I have my own paintings from the Human Rights Painting Project, and then we have a photography exhibit from the Death Penalty Documentary Project. We have theater from new dramatist fellow Mashouk Dean. We have theater from Ari Gold, who is the first gay pop star in America, and he's going to be doing an autobiographical piece. An activist playwright named Kathleen Fileux, who does really important work. She does a lot of work at La Mama. She's won many awards. That's in theater. We have spoken word. Poetic People Power has created a bunch of work. We have a lot of dance, a lot of really beautiful dance. We have a Bessie Award-winning choreographer. We have the Jay Chen Project. We have a Hamilton dancer who's done some choreography for us right now. She'll be on Broadway at that time, so her choreography will be present, but she will not.
Like
Carla Garcia.
3 days of great different things going on.
We have 50 events, 150 or more participants over the whole weekend, starting Friday evening at we'll start at about 7:30 p.m. with our opening ceremonies and go straight through till Sunday night. So absolutely.
So you have theater, you have dance, you have music, and a lot of this you were talking about earlier when we had an interview last week about some of the expression about being positive, about culture. You're talking about society, as I recall.
Yeah, I think it's very, I curate, and the whole festival is based on sincerity and a positive, we feel that we want to engage, we don't want to oppose. And I'll tell one story that I think gives a sense of how that engagement can influence, hopefully. Senator Chuck Schumer was kind enough to make us a welcome video, and he sent it in recently. He's very busy right now, Teddy, as you can imagine, trying to oppose the tidal wave that's headed our way. So when he starts out the video, he looks like he's fulfilling an obligation. But then somewhere in the middle of the video, he begins to talk about his own experience with an activist artist, and he talks about his experience in college listening to Bob Dylan. And he turns away from his notes and he talks directly to the camera, and his whole affect changes, and he talks about how that influenced his direction in life. Listening to Dylan, talking to his friends about Dylan, sitting in the dorm room. And it really gives a sense of how powerful this work, when it's positive and forward-looking and beautiful, talented, how it really can influence people. And it sounded like Senator Schumer still felt that resonance 40 years later.
You have also a video of Norman Lear?
We do. Norman has been very supportive. I worked with him in 2010 on another art festival. I've talked with him on the phone. He was kind enough to send us some funding, and he is in the process of making us a welcome video for the festival as well. That one's not in quite yet, but...
Did you also mention Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders, like Mr. Schumer, Senator Schumer is quite busy. You're mentioning, first of all, on our honorary co-sponsorship list. So we have about 12 or 14 senators, congressmen, social leaders, activists who have lent their name. Bernie Sanders is one of those.
How did you get involved? Where did it all begin for you, Mr. Tom Block, in terms of the International Human Rights Art Festival? How did this all evolve?
Well, I've been an activist artist for nearly 2 decades now, but one thing I discovered was that as I got deeper into this field, the more you work with other people, the more you bring that kind of energy together, the more influence you can have. So I did produce 2 other human rights art festivals, one in Washington, D.C. in conjunction with Amnesty International in 2010.
And how did that one differ from this one next Friday?
Well, it was outside of Washington, D.C. in the suburbs, and it was much, much larger and quite a bit more diffuse. So I felt that it's better to distill maybe to a much more powerful and yet smaller event. So
Mhm.
that's how I reacted to that one for this one. And then I was able to find a beautiful partner in Dixon Place, and Ellie Covan, and she's been just incredibly supportive, and has been able to provide us with the kind of venue and the kind of audience that I think will really appreciate the work we're doing.
And you're the producer of this
I'm the
festival.
producer. Yes, I am. Founding producer.
Could you tell us some of the dance companies or some of the people that will be performing at your
Yeah,
international
we have a
festival?
very, I personally love dance, so that we have quite a bit of dance involved. We have Bessie Award-winning Joya Powell doing a piece about on the Argentinian dictatorship and about how people were disappeared and killed in front of a church. So it's about a very specific event. We have Spilling Ink, which is an Indian dance company doing traditional Indian dance, which will look at the fusion of spirituality and activism. We have Jessica Chen of J Chen Project, and she has commissioned herself 3 other pieces and produced one that is using text and dance around different aspects of human rights. And then we have Jackie Dugal doing a piece about under. It's about how we're always under surveillance and kind of feel like we're under some kind of cloud these days. So these artists are dealing in very specific ways with issues that we are, as a society, struggling with right now.
And what are some of the International Human Rights Arts Festival in terms of the creation of it? I know it's quite an interesting story how this all came to be.
In terms of the development?
Yes. Mhm.
Well, I went to Ellie and said, I have this idea, and I want to take over your art space. And, Ellie Covan, the founding artistic director of Dixon Place, and being a woman of beautiful, open heart and Sufi mentality, she was willing to entertain this idea. And really, we just started building quite specifically. We started by getting our honorary co-sponsors first, and then I started reaching out to artists. It's like a building block thing. So once you get your first honorary co-sponsor, you can get larger and bigger and more important honorary co-sponsors. And then once you have them on board, artists are more interested in getting involved. We're able to get great award-winning artists. And then once the artists and the co-sponsors are involved, you start reaching out to the press and start reaching out to volunteers. So there's a whole kind of tiered system of putting it together.
And how many years would you say you've been, how far back does it go in terms of your involvement in art activism? About how many years?
I think 20 years now,
20
back
years.
into the late 90s, absolutely.
And you're a playwright, painter, producer, a multifaceted artist and person. Do you have a favorite of those 3? Or are they all, of course, we're all interconnected, we know.
Yeah, I love them all. I mean, they all bring different things. I'm fairly new to theater, and theater's it's a wonderful experience because it's so collaborative and because an audience sits and watches and looks at your art. But I love them all for their own. They're like children. Don't ask me to choose one, Teddy.
Okay, well, I'm not going to choose one, but I'm going to definitely choose this great picture that you have right over here. I'm going to just turn the camera over here,
Oh, yeah.
the computer, and we see some beautiful art. That happens to be yours, I believe. Can you tell us what that is?
I can. And for those of you out there in radio land who probably can't see the painting I'm looking at, so there is a large abstract painting I did called Conference of the Birds. It is based in a story by a 13th century Sufi mystic named Attar. And I did it. It's 50 feet long and 6 feet high, and it is a series of panels, and it tries to follow this, in sort of semi-abstract language, tries to follow this journey that he describes in the book of people looking and yearning for spiritual realization. And then this painting was used as a backdrop in several of my productions. So that's what I do. I take the paintings and I use them in play productions to kind of continue to give that atmosphere and attitude that I'm trying to develop through the language.
And what do you want people to get out of this festival for this entire weekend? There's a theme going on here, and there's a lot of great philosophy. Or what is exactly the most important aspects that you want to share with us tonight?
I think the most important aspect is that now, I think a lot of people in New York, and certainly in the New York art world, are feeling very overwhelmed and distressed. And I think that we need to meet this feeling inside of ourselves with positive reaction and not complete opposition, with engagement to the sense to our abilities to engage with governmental structures, with I mean, I have Republican senators that are on the honorary co-sponsorship list.
Mhm.
So I think we need to continue to think in a positive and engaging way and be pretty confident that this tidal wave is going to wash over us and probably disappear. And just really come in and share some beautiful moments with people that are caring, and kind of reset yourself in your spiritual and emotional center, and just know that you're not alone in these struggles and that there's a lot of positive energy still out there, and really beautiful, sincere people doing great work.
You want to mention a play that you wrote?
I did write a play. There's a play in the festival called Duck, which looks at a CIA agent who his interior experience starts to crumble as he has more and more success with the government, and it's an exploration of what goes on personally inside of people that are part of our security apparatus, that maybe they too experience a kind of a dissonance and distress that we don't necessarily understand out here.
And there's going to be children as part of the festival, a very, very creative aspect of the art festival. Could you explain to us about the children?
Sure. Well, you want to get them while they're young, so we have both mornings, Saturday and Sunday morning, starting at 9:30. We have something called the Kids Fest, and we will have both mornings hands-on art activities and hands-on interactive activities. We have Alika Hope and the Ray of Hope Project doing music and interactive music with the kids. On Saturday morning, Sunday mornings, Groove With Me interactive dance around human rights themes, and then we'll be writing the Prisoners of Conscience, and have Arte, art and resistance through education, working with the kids and hands-on activities. So you want to get them to understand that art's great, but you can even take it to another level where this art can become activist and advocacy oriented.
Now, how can people get tickets? What do they have to do? And can they go also to your website, which I believe you want to give out?
Yeah, if you go to dixonplace.org, and you click on the Human Rights Art Festival link, it's down at the bottom, all the shows will pop up, and there's day passes, and then you click through and you can get to the Ovation tickets, or tickets are still available for everything. There's day passes for Saturday and Sunday, there's passes for individual events. Tickets range right now from $5 up to $25. It's not wildly expensive. The opening ceremonies on Friday night at 7:30 will be a very exciting time, because that's when we're going to bring all these together, politicians, the artists, the activists.
Maybe the radio station.
Maybe the radio station, if we get fortunate enough. Yeah, it's right around your time, 7:30.
Here we are.
It's Teddy time.
That's right. Now, if you go on Facebook, they should see some of all the great works that you've done that we just mentioned.
Yes, and our Facebook page is Human Rights Art Festival, and my assistant producer texted me right before I got here to make sure I don't do social media, so she's got to poke me. And then we have a Instagram and we have Twitter on HR Art Festival. And yeah, both of those will provide you kind of moment by moment glimpses into what we're working on right now. She's posting as we go. So Human Rights Art Festival is the Facebook page.
Who is your activism idol? Do you have one?
Well, not only do I have several, but I'm fortunate in that someone will be at the festival. And I think the one that comes to mind most important is a man named Wei Jingsheng. And Wei Jingsheng spent 18 years in jail in China for advocating for democracy. And he was released due to international pressure, and then he received an American citizenship by an act of Congress. And he continues to advocate from afar for democracy in China. And he'll be coming out and he'll be speaking. And he really gave me a sense when I first met him, I met him in 2002, of how important activist art can be. Because when I met him, he came out to my studio to see paintings I'd done of him. And he said, I kind of said to him, with all due respect, why are you here in my studio? I mean, he's been nominated 7 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. And, I haven't, Teddy.
You never know, maybe you will.
There you go. Time, there's still some time. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, look, when I was at my lowest point, when I was going through trial, when I was in jail, when I was in solitary confinement for, months and months, the only people that stood with me were the artists. It was the artists that he could count on. It was the artists that would still believe. And I thought, what an incredibly powerful statement. If a man like this finds that kind of worth in art, then there is worth in art, period.
Well, let's have an art segment on the radio here one day. I think
there
that
you
would
go.
be unique.
Yeah. That would be great.
Thanks, Tom.
We're doing it right now. Thank you very much, Teddy.